I want to start with a quote, which should sound familiar if you followed, the recent rumblings of the likes of Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking and those guys. Once the computers got control, we might never get it back. We would survive at their sufferance. If we're lucky, they might decide to keep us as pets. Now, this is actually not from these guys. I think some of them might actually not even have been born then. This was from Professor Marvin Minsky in 1970. He is one of the AI pioneers of artificial intelligence and information technology in general. Now, this quote is quite similar. The development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. It would take off on its own and redesign itself at an ever-increasing rate. Humans couldn't compete and would be superseded. So this actually is from today, from Professor Stephen Hawking. Now, I actually believe he's right, but only because of one word in that quote, which is full artificial intelligence. Some people call it general artificial intelligence. General artificial intelligence is basically the idea of, a computer system that completely mimics or matches the human capabilities, cognitive capabilities, and we're quite far from that. But if we have it, then I think this is true. Personally, I don't think we'll ever have it. I think we'll have an approximation, like a sum of a lot of narrow AI, but never the equivalent of the human mind. The reason why I think not this guy, I think he knows what he's talking about, but some others are overestimating what AI can do is because they don't realize that machine learning systems are trained to do specific tasks. Their knowledge does not generalize. Okay, the fallacy that a computer's narrow understanding implies broader understanding is perhaps the biggest source of confusion. And exaggerated claims, and the vendors in this space are to blame as well for that, about AI's progress. We are far from machines that exhibit general intelligence across diverse domains. And this comes from a piece that I read from last year from Professor Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee from MIT, which I can only recommend. It's a brilliant piece about the state of artificial intelligence and machine learning in particular. And of course, we're talking about AI here because this is an AI conference, right? This is a conference about technology that mimics something only humans were thought to do, which is speak and listen and engage in a conversation. So if AI is far out there, why is this relevant? I think this is relevant because in some areas that touch our world, customer service and customer service technology, progress is actually quite tangible and it's fast. And this progress produces tangible results. In the area of speech recognition alone, which is merely the task of taking an acoustic signal and converting it to text, I'm not yet talking about the second step, which is taking that text and making sense out of it, converting it to meaning and intent. That's a different challenge. But the task of recognizing or transcribing the words that the system is hearing has actually gotten pretty good. Speech recognition rate is now about 3 times as fast as typing on a cell phone. The error rate, once 8.5%, has dropped to 4.9%, and not in the last 5 or 10 years or so, no, since summer 2016. Now, what about this rate of 4.9% or 5%? Well, that rate is actually very close to what humans do, what humans can do. So in 2016, in October, Microsoft announced that their research team has reached human parity in conversational speech recognition. The 5.9% error rate that they were able to actually get better than is about equal to that of people. So if you dictate to people, they will make 5.9 mistakes in 100 words. And it's the lowest ever recorded. So machines are now better with recognizing speech. That's quite fascinating. Now let's take a step back and think about where this technology and how this technology is exposed to us. And of course, it's in the form of computers. Computers started off as a specialist's tool. Right? So these are people, highly trained academics, that built these machines so they could do calculations quicker than they could before, like for the moon landing in the late 60s. Computers, however, were then moved into the mainstream, and I want to say there's a problem with that because that happened by the same people, the specialists. You all recognize this man, I hope. Bill Gates from Microsoft. That is a picture I found online. And it has a public domain license, so we're good. Now, where's the problem with that? The problem with that is that, if a specialist designs, not just engineers, but designs a machine that is supposed to interface with humans, that's a problem because software engineers are great at engineering, but they suck at designing man-machine interfaces. I'm sorry. That requires a different talent. And that's why I'm so excited about what's happening at the moment around the world, and again, driven from Silicon Valley and, I guess, Washington State, is this. The conversational user interface to computing is a true paradigm shift. If you think about it, in the past 60, 70 years, it was us humans that had to learn how to computer. Right? We had to learn the command line. We started with punch cards. We had to learn all these cryptic commands. Then the mouse came out, great advancement, but I remember my mom having had issues trying to do the double click. It was a physiological challenge for her pointer finger to do the click-click gesture. She couldn't do it at first. It was not in her hand. But she learned it, right? She saw enough value in this machine that she said, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn it. It's enough value to me for me to spend that time. But now, for the first time at mass scale, it's the computers that learn how to speak human, how to talk to us through human language. And that is a profound paradigm shift that we can't overestimate. Imagine you could get stuff done purely through voice. And it's not just consumer-related stuff like play the music or give me the weather forecast. I'm talking actually user interfaces that are making their way into our computers in a way that they actually work now. Speech recognition and controlling computers has been around for a long time, but it's now part of the operating system. For those of you that have a Mac OS or a MacBook, you might not know there's Siri. You can reach her by hitting the command and space bar and hold it for a second, and then Siri starts listening. Or you click on that little Siri icon in the top right corner. And you can ask Siri things that are not about weather or traffic. You can say, find me the PowerPoint file about speech tech from last week. Find me, the last Word doc that David sent me. That's new. That's starting to kind of integrate the world of conversational computing with the world of graphical user interfaces, GUIs. Now, what happens if even expert tools get a conversational UI, a CUI? We had this example, right, in the Microsoft world. Open the proposal Word doc that David sent me yesterday. How much time would this save? And I can do this today, as I just showed you. If the equivalent would have been clicking through, opening the Finder tool, doing a search by author, right, by time. This is fast. This is pretty cool, right? In the world of CRM, I could start asking questions that I, as a sales manager, might have. What's the close date of the Disney deal? Or in the world of workforce management, or contact center, or IVR, you could ask the aspect system maybe, how does last week's call deflection rate compare to the average? These are questions that are on the mind of a supervisor in the call center. What I'm most excited about, though, is this type of inquiry. Schedule a coffee for Jim and me for next week in the afternoon, please. This is done by a startup called X.AI, and they built an artificial intelligent personal assistant, AI personal assistant, that works like any personal assistant that you might have in real life. Meaning, you CC her or him, you can choose between Amy or Andrew, on an email to Jim in this case. And you just ask her in plain English like you would with your assistant. Amy, please send an invite for me and Brian to meet on Thursday at 2 p.m. in my office. Andrew, please reschedule this meeting for Friday. Go ahead and make this a call instead. Why does this matter? Why is this different? I mean, we had tools like this before, right? We had a shareable calendar. You send a link to the other person. They see the open slots, and they pick a slot that they can do. But that isn't seamlessly fitting into our workflows. That isn't part of how we do things as humans. You know, I've been using this for a while now, and I can say that it goes easier off my hands to just drop a quick email with Amy on CC, and then she will do that email ping pong that happens from then on, right? Can you do next week? Oh, sorry, I got a conflict now. Can you do in the afternoon? No, the afternoon isn't open. Can we do Friday instead? What about meeting there? You know that, right? It's ping pong of emails until you have a meeting in your calendar. The AI takes care of that and keeps you out of that. That's how it saves you time. And the feedback from users is phenomenal. These are tweets. Tariq writes, my new favorite productivity tool, scheduling meetings with X.AI, an AI email assistant so easy to use. A client replied asking to meet my assistant for coffee. And only then learned that Amy was a robot passing the hashtag Turing test. Emily, blown away that I just had an AI bot schedule a meeting with me. Thak, or Dave, love Amy. Wouldn't be without her now. This use of the word love is interesting to me because while I know I'm a German citizen, and so I'm not someone that has grown up in America. I know that Americans try to, they often exaggerate their use of language. When something is amazing and you ask the Brit goes, yeah, not too bad, right? You guys like to use grandiose language. But I still think there is something to be said here about people using that type of language when talking about a piece of software. And I think it's due to the power of Entropymorphism, which is the attribution of human characteristics or behavior to a god, animal, or object. And this is a tendency that is innate in us. That's part of our DNA. We do this all the time with our pets, with our things. People tell Alexa, I love you, Alexa, all the time. They probably mean it. Last year, Amazon, as you can see here depicted on the right, Alexa, and Microsoft Cortana, they announced a partnership. And your first reaction to that news might have been, wow, I did not expect that. Aren't they competitors? Well, Jeff Bezos, probably the smartest man in tech, says, look, over time, people will turn to different digital assistants the same way they turn to one friend for advice about hiking and another for restaurant recommendations, and so on. So we as humans know who to go to. We know our friends by name. We know that Deborah can help me with music, and Mark can help me with skateboards, or whatever is important in your life. And Jeff Bezos says, I want them to have access to as many of those AIs as possible. So again, we're using a human pattern of behavior and apply it in a smart way to technology and exploit it in a smart way with technology. And there's something to be said about the use of language, right? Language is so important to us as humans. It defines who we are. Nelson Mandela is quoted to have said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Language defines us. It defines our culture, defines our groups, right? We identify through language. Language forms our thoughts. I'm a linguist by education, and one of the things I learned that was really amazing to me to understand is that depending on which language you grew up with, you perceive the world differently. And the classical example is, Inuit having like 20 words for snow, so they see snow differently from us. We just see snow. Maybe we can tell snow you can have a snowball fight with versus snow you can't, but that's about what we can do. Jane Goodall, the researcher that lived with the apes, what makes us human is the ability to ask questions, a consequence of our sophisticated spoken language. And Steve Jobs, who was the smartest man in tech before Jeff Bezos, said technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the results that make our hearts sing. Apple is the only company today that gets this and makes this a core principle of everything they do and everything they build. So they get that you have to do something that works for humans, not just for the specialists, and language is the key to that. Who else got that? Well, one of the pioneers of language technology was Professor Weizenbaum. He built a system called Eliza in the mid-60s, which was built to be simulating a psychotherapist, a Rogerian psychotherapist, specific approach to doing psychotherapy, which basically is all about letting the patient speak and just giving them cues and giving them support to continue to speak and share his thoughts or her thoughts. So a typical Eliza dialogue might have been like this. Eliza, is something troubling you? Men are all alike. Eliza, what is the connection, do you suppose? So what happened here in the response was Eliza saw the presence of the word alike and then triggered this very generic response, which is another question, right, to make the person speak more, which you could say to anything. What is the connection, do you suppose? They're always bugging us about something or other. Can you think of a specific example? Again, that's a static sentence that it just spits out, and it appears to be smart to kind of lead this dialogue, right? Well, my boyfriend made me come here. Is it important to you that your boyfriend made you come here? So now it's just taken all the words and exchanging me with you. That's it. There's no intelligence in this, but it appears intelligent. And to Weizenbaum's consternation, some users came to believe that Eliza had real understanding, and they would unburden themselves in long computer sessions. It's crazy to some extent, right, if you think about it, but it's something that we should embrace. And that's what we did, and I want you to meet Margo. Margo is a chatbot that Aspect built for a supermarket in the UK called Lidl. Lidl had great success selling wine. They won awards, they still do, but they're a discounter. So they sell cheap wine, but qualitative, high-quality wine. But they have no one in the stores, of which there are over 800 in the UK, that knows anything about wine. But they want to help their customers find the right wine. I think every one of us can relate. You're in the wine aisle, you're in a liquor store, you see the wines, you're like, what should I get? I have no clue what goes well with that roast beef I'm making tonight. Wouldn't it be great if you could place an AI on every mobile which scales indefinitely and is just there to answer your questions? It provides food pairing advice, so you can say what goes with chicken Kiev or whatever.
Maria is excited about hosting a dinner for her friends this evening. She needs help choosing the right line for the meal she has planned, so she turns to Lidl for assistance through Facebook Messenger. Since this is the very first time she's engaging with Lidl on Facebook, Maria is asked to tap the Get Started button. Maria taps the menu option button, indicating it will kick off a conversation with Margo, the wine bot. Maria decides to ask a question right away versus following the menu structure. Margo is fine with that and responds accordingly. Maria asks a fairly complex question that asks for 3 pieces of information in the desired response. Margo's advanced natural language understanding capability allows her to identify the relevant pieces, including understanding that 1 refers to wine given the context. Furthermore, she's smart enough to include a £6.99 wine in the search for £7 and above. Maria then uses informal language to ask a question here about a particular winemaking region. Even though Margo did not specifically mention that she can answer such questions, Margo is trained to answer a variety of frequently asked questions, so has no problem answering this one. Margo speaks English, almost like a human does. Therefore, everyday slang-like responses like this don't lead to the typical, "I'm sorry, I did not understand the question" response, but are handled just like a human would. For example, responding with an emoji. Maria now switches topics, asking a question specific to the dinner she is serving this evening, without going through Margo's predefined menu structure. Margo handles this gracefully. Since Margo suggests that providing a more specific description of the dish might give more precise recommendations, Maria gives it a try. Using the more colloquial spelling of kebab, K-A-B-O-B, Margo's AI understands it nevertheless, applying spell correction internally before responding. Margo brings up the existing Little Store Finder website, so Maria can conveniently search for the closest store without exiting Messenger. Maria is getting more curious about Margo, so decides to try an experiment. She sends a chicken emoji, not expecting much. To her surprise, Margo recognizes it and responds with a recommendation for chicken. Her reaction makes Margo laugh too. Maria is really stretching it now, asking about a very particular type of fruit. While Margo doesn't have a particular recommendation for raspberries, a fruit ontology is a part of her artificial intelligence makeup, so Margo immediately recognizes it as a kind of fruit. Maria is now switching topics once more, intrigued by the quiz that Margo announced at the very start of their interaction. Maria is enjoying the quiz. Margo encourages customer engagement through these types of gaming elements. Never hurts to ask Margo. Maria could have asked her question in a variety of different ways, such as, how do I remove a stain? Or how to clean a wine spill? Margo's natural language understanding skills can handle such variations in phrasing. Maria is happy and now loves Little even more, as she's learned a whole lot about wines and has found the perfect wine for her dinner party. Aspect and Little, the perfect pairing. To learn more, visit www.aspect.ai.
Have some of you tried it? Did it work? Should I give you some advice? Maybe for the type of cheese you're eating in your sandwich or something? There's a whole cheese ontology in the system, too. We gave it to the press, and the response was, like, phenomenal. All the national media wrote about it: Telegraph, the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Guardian. Huffington Post did a video about it. They actually video interviewed a real sommelier for her advice, and then paired it, made her basically compete with Margo and asked if Margo had the same advice. Turns out Margo did pretty well. What excited me even more, though, than the press response was what people wrote about Margo. Jenny here says, "Stop the press. There is a wine bot. Her name is Margo, and she has an awesome job. # robot stole my dream job." Tara Evans, she was the writer for the Sun. Little's new WineBot is pretty cool. Anne, loving the new WineBot. If only you could do this with fishing flies. Turns out this woman works for a fishing fly company and is thinking about building a chatbot for that because there's actually quite some complexity in fishing flies. Who knew? Retail Gazette loves Lidl's new virtual sommelier. Lidl has launched the first supermarket WineBot. It's called Margo. Favorite story of the day found by 8:59 a.m. So people associate an emotional response when they can talk to something they know is just technology. But there is something to be said about a computer system that greets you with a blinking cursor where it's up to you to discover what's behind it. And I think that's the biggest difference to a graphical UI in the form of a website or a mobile app, right? You have it all in front of you. Now think about it. We could have taken the same data of the food pairing and the recommendations and the wine listings and put it on the website of Lidl. Do you think anyone would have cared? I don't think so. I think it's when you expose your corporate data through a conversational user interface and you assign a name to it and a persona, it comes to life. It elicits emotional responses from people and delights them in ways that no traditional UI ever could. No website, no app. That is the power of chatbots. Who said this? Yours truly. I want you to meet another AI personality. You might have heard of him. His name is Edward. This is a bot we designed a couple of years ago for the Radisson Blu Edwardian hotel chain in London. Guests check in, and they can access Edward over SMS and ask him for room service and maintenance and if breakfast is included in their stay and where the gym is and make a reservation and all those things. Are the guests liking it? They're loving it. They're calling Edward out on TripAdvisor, on these forums. Someone here said we had a virtual host, which was very convenient. I especially appreciate the new virtual host accessible by SMS. Having forgotten my toothbrush, I made a text of 4 words, and upon my return from the always excellent steak and lobster restaurant downstairs, it was waiting for me. People love the convenience. There's actually another company that builds robots that serve hotel guests. You might go, that's crazy. That takes it too far. But look at YouTube. Find that video. It's actually quite amazing, and the people love it. The guests that were staying there was a young family with 2 young children. Of course they loved this. They gave it a 5-star rating. Michael Marini, the IT director of the hotel chain that we work with, said, the staff have come to see Edward as a member of the team. Now, if you ask somebody a question, they say, oh, I don't know, ask Edward. And that brings up something else interesting. You might think, now, this is all great. What are we doing to our employees, though? Do they fear this? Do they have a concern with this? Well, they have concerns, but they're first of all curious. And to our surprise, they actually don't mind it at all. They welcome it. We did some research last year on agent response to this new technology. How do you feel about it? If chatbots take away the simple inquiries like account balance and those things, how do you feel about that? Well, they love the idea. Agents say, over 79% say it would improve their skills if they could focus on the harder problems, on the problems that take humans to solve. 72% say it would make them feel like they are having a bigger impact in the company. 64% say it would enable them to provide more personalized service experience for customers. 59% of people that we asked say they would feel more satisfied in their jobs and more committed to the company if all of this took place. It would take the monotony and the mundaneness out of their jobs, meaning they will become more engaged. If you're interested in a deeper dive on that study, you can access it through aspect.com/agent-survey-results, or just approach us at the booth and ask us about it. Now, if you still don't believe me how people respond emotionally and how this technology touches them on a level that we haven't seen yet, then I invite you to have a laugh with me, not at the cost of this person, but with this person that you're going to see now.
What is raining today? Water. Yeah. Oh my God, answer. It says yeah. You say yeah? Yeah, it's her. Oh my God. Is it a woman? Yeah.
there will be showers with a high of 65 and a low of 56.
Oh my gosh. Cuckoo! Hi, cuckoo! Hey, okay.
Tomorrow in London, it'll be sunny with a high of 41 and a low of 28.
The temperature in London. Mom, I asked you to play your favorite song. Play your favorite song. Cuckoo! Cuckoo! Yeah, you're cuckoo, right?
Now you saw her response, right, when it finally understood her. She was taken, I mean, she was so amazed at this thing, the little Google Mini on her desk. So I think you got the point. Now what does that mean for us in the contact center, serving customers, in customer-centric organizations? I want to take a step back again and look at the impact of that and the opportunity. Professor Thomas Malone from MIT Sloan, he said, in business process reengineering of the 1990s, people automating tasks meant a major project. Once finished, you didn't want to make any more changes for quite a long time. With AI, we'll need to think of the combination of people and computers as an ever-evolving system. And he goes on about this. What he basically means is, you know, we need to rethink what technology can do and what technology is, and we need to allow technology kind of even more into the workflow. But if we do it, if we treat technology and AI-based systems like a new form of hire that we bring into the company, then that's how you can make that difference. So I'm saying hire a digital employee. Hire a digital employee. And then think about what are the strengths and weaknesses of your live staff versus your digital staff. What makes a human great? Come on, let's make this interactive. Give me some traits of a human being that make us great. Michael. Humor. Personality. Honesty. Empathy. A smile. Intuition. Creativity. Judgment. We kind of know, as long as we've been raised the right way, what's right and wrong. Empathy. Now, what makes us not so great, at least in the eyes of the employer? We can get sick. We can leave. We can make mistakes or produce inconsistent work. Inconsistency is not a good thing for a customer-facing organization. You want to have consistency because you want to build your brand. We demand pay raises with time. And we only tolerate boring work for a while. What if you could hire an employee that is never in a bad mood, never calls in sick, never leaves, never charges overtime, produces consistent quality, works 24/7, 365, is only a new employee once, gets smarter all the time, as long as you keep investing into it. And as long as you don't treat it like any other IT project with a limited budget, a limited project timeline. That's the old way of thinking about it. We have to say, okay, I get it. The technology is ready finally, so it can do more meaningful work, but it can also, because it now speaks our language, be integrated further into how we do stuff, into our business processes. And that's the mind shift that needs to happen, I think. The digital employee is related to something called robotic process automation, RPA. Professor Wilcox from London School of Economics defines it as RPA takes the robot out of the human. It's a type of software that mimics the activity of a human being in carrying out a task within a process. It can do repetitive stuff more quickly, accurately, and tirelessly than humans, freeing them to do other tasks requiring human strength, such as emotional intelligence, reasoning, judgment, and interaction with a customer. Ultimately, if you do start on this journey of rethinking, it's a new group of people that you need to manage. People in quotes, right? Besides your in-house full-time employees, your in-house part-time, your in-house contractors, your outsourcers, your work-at-home employees, you now have the digital employees. And they need to become part of how you forecast the needs for workforce, how you manage it, how you track it, how you schedule it. If you have a product launch up and coming in a week, you know you need new staff. But if you have a digital employee and that you give it a name, you can start talking differently about it. You will see that there's a dynamic happening in your organization where people, your staff comes up with their own ideas. Oh, can't we give this to whatever the name is? So at Aspect, we have one digital employee right now. Her name is Ivy. Her full name is Ivy Richardson, or IVR for short. Smart, huh? And she will soon get a sister, but I can't talk about that yet. Not a sister, a colleague. But Ivy serves customers that visit our Facebook page today. And Ivy, is not designed to go into depth on our products, right? We want our business development staff or inside sales staff to talk to people coming to us. But she can answer some questions, especially around our events that we're participating in, and maybe our office locations, and how to apply for a job, things like that. What I witness now is that people from different departments come to me and say, so, as you know, I work in HR, and we're getting all these repetitive questions from new hires. How can I get business cards? How can I? What are my benefits? Where do I find this and that? Travel policy. Can we give that to Ivy? Can't Ivy answer those questions? That's exactly the kind of dynamic that I had hoped for, quite honestly, to create inside of Aspect. And that's the kind of dynamic you can create, where your agents will go, oh, I don't want to be answering, like, when is product X coming out? Can we give that to Ivy? She can answer that question. It's a trivial question. Ultimately, that means, I think, that we need to shift away the responsibility for this technology from IT to your workforce managers, to the people that train the other types of employees, right? When there is new knowledge, new business process, you're training your agents. Why don't you train your digital employees a very similar way? Yesterday, I'm going to tell you a quick story. I had booked the Marriott up the street for myself for this event, not realizing that the office had already booked hotels for all the booth staff and the speakers at this event. So we had a double booking situation. I went online to Marriott.com and I looked at the cancellation policy, and I was too late. They would have charged me $338 for canceling the room that I didn't need. So I said, well, that's silly, right? It's a clear double booking situation. So I'm after a goodwill here from Marriott to waive that fee. So I called their call center, got through to someone, and of course they waived the fee. I was like, did this interaction had to go to the call center? And I thought about why was that not an option in the website, in the mobile app, in the IVR? And I think it's because many people still are frightened to touch their IVR specifically and make changes to it. And quite frankly, I think the vendors, all of us, the entire industry, can do an even better job at making the tools even simpler to use. So training an AI about a business rule that says, if there is a double booking for the exact same guest with the same name, for the exact same dates in 2 Marriott in the same city, then go ahead and waive that cancellation fee. That rule was probably inside the head of the agent, but why didn't we write it down and give it to the IVR, to the website, to the mobile app, to any other digital employee, right? So that mindset shift, if you think it through, it's quite interesting what happens, right? So in the past, you would consider an IVR or a voice bot or a chatbot an IT project where the first thing you have to do is gather requirements before deciding, yeah, we need new products, we need new technology to do this. In the new world, you might go, well, we look at our requirements for our business to decide if we need new staff. In the old world, you would then define a solution architecture for this technology. In the new world, you will define the job description of this new thing, right? In the old world, you would then choose a platform vendor. In the new world, you will choose an agency that will help with onboarding of this new employee. In the old world, you would then go and install and configure the platform. In the new world, you will just get familiar with what the onboarding approach is of the selected agency or vendor. In the old world, you would then start building the IVR scripts or chatbot scripts or build the web scripts and mobile app flows, right? They're also kind of flows. In the new world, no, you're teaching the digital employee the basics of your business, like you would teach a live staff member the basics of your business. And then you would test scripts. No, you will expose your digital employee to internal customers to validate their initial performance. Deploying scripts now means just ready them to take the first call or chat. Tuning the scripts means train them on new questions or business processes, or improve the responses. And then review the performance reports. You do that for both. Right? So back to the Marriott example. If it had been easier, I think the reason why we're not doing a lot of these things is because of the following. IVR in particular, why is it not the customer's best friend? If all the statistics, all the research says, all the market research says people love to self-serve, why not over IVR? I think there's a couple of reasons. Automatic speech recognition systems often don't hear us right. Now, yes, that was true in the beginnings, and yes, it's partly still true today, but it's so drastically improving now, and I shared the stats at the beginning, that we can soon consider this a solved problem. So, hearing my words and transcribing them, making sense out of my words is yet another challenge, but we're getting better on that as well, because we're more aware of the challenges and more aware, we're putting more effort into solving this problem. The entire experience often has us repeat information we already provided. Now that is solved technically. It just means you need to design it so you don't repeat, don't ask for stuff you already know. Just put a database, make it your central point of record, and you make everyone access it. It's really not that hard. It's hard from an organizational perspective. It's not hard from a technology perspective. But I think the biggest problem that we have with IVR is we call a company with a particular question in mind. First of all, then, we can't just ask the question. No, we need to translate our question into menu items that the IVR presents to us. That happens, by the way, the same way if you go to the website of the company or open the mobile app. They're all menu-based. Nowhere can I just take my question, dump it into a message, and off you go. But that is now happening, right? But this is the area, I think, where we have to rethink because, if it's not represented in the dialogue logic, then add it. Add it. Keep adding to it, right? The menu might have 10, 15 options. Well, that's not all the things I can do with you as a company. There was a cancel reservation option in the Marriott experience, but it didn't have this double booking situation programmed in. So add it. Even if only a few calls a week have this problem, there will be a few calls this week, meaning a few customers a week that will get frustrated if they have to speak to an agent and wait 10 minutes online on hold to get this resolved. If you keep adding, if you keep improving, like you keep mentoring a new hire, it will ultimately work for the next caller that comes in. So now let's think about, okay, if we really take this seriously, we want to start assigning some work to a live employee and other work to a digital employee. Let's look at the types of work that we have in the contact center, right? There's things like look up data and reading it back if somebody calls in for their account balance. There is advise a customer or reassure a customer. Often people are calling the contact center because they need reassurance that something is actually going to happen. Explain the business process. Okay, let me walk you through this mortgage process, blah, 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 right? Sell, conduct a back-end transaction, remind or notify a customer. But now what you want to do, and I'm very proud of this animation coming now, so please all watch. You want to reassign these, pretty fancy, huh? To realign along an axis of complexity of the task, or you could say, empathy needed, right? Human strength needed. And you will realize that there are some things at the very top, like de-escalating a customer issue, that you will never want a robot to do. And there are some things towards the bottom that you really shouldn't have your agents do. And then you define what I call your digital comfort level. And you might start small or low, right? And everything below the line you say, I give to my digital employee. But then over time, as you become more confident with the technology, as your customers become more confident, as the demographics of your customer change, you move that line up. But again, you will not move it up to the top. You will find a stop where you say, that's it. We want to remain the human touch, retain the human touch, and not give everything to technology. That's okay. That's okay, and I think it reemphasizes what I said at the beginning in the first part of my talk, that now that software can speak plain English and many other languages and communicate more like we do, language itself is not a means to an end. And Richard Hugo said, once language exists only to convey information, it is dying. So let's not forget that there are some things that we need our human counterparts for. I'm not advocating replacing everything with technology. That's not what I want to do. But I do want to leave you with this thought that, and I have a time ticking here, 10 seconds. That's pretty phenomenal of myself that I land on time on the second. The time is right for more automation, but I think two things need to happen. Our tools need to stay on a path of innovation, needs to get simpler to use, needs to make use of giving you a UI interface, a natural language interface, so you can just tell the IVR platform, hey, I want you to handle this scenario now in the following way, versus program it with an IT specialist. And number two, the contact center must begin to embrace conversational AI. You should start. You can start small, but start. Thank you very much.